GM, good morning. Can you all hear me all right? Dan, do you hear me all right? Or is my sound coming through? Okay, perfect. Good. Nice. Good morning, everybody. Happy to see everybody here on their Sunday morning. We're going to talk about a whole bunch of stuff today on our agenda. We have Hardcore, who has he's put in a lot of work to get this Miro board together for us. So I'm going to share that with you so you can follow along if you'd like. GM, everybody. So I put the Miro board in the DAO meetings chat. That's where we'll be holding most of our conversation today. And you can also follow along for anybody who's spectating on my YouTube channel or on Twitter, Aavegotchi Pacific Chapter. So for today's agenda, if we head over to the Miro board, actually, I want to see who else is in the audience. We have an extensive document that was put together by Notorious BTC and Mikey J, and they're working together on a harvester model, which I think will be interesting. There is here, I'm going to pop the link down that for that document. It's a pretty good read. Definitely check it out. It's a Dropbox. Get that. Oh yeah, shout out to Anthony Zombie Shepherd for streaming and recording this as well. Okay, so I got that. That's Aavegotchi optimization. And so we'll head over to the board. Okay. So
hey,
we got
GM guys.
Oh, GM. We got a number of things on our board this morning. We got some old business that we can cover quickly before we get into it. One of the old business that we've been discussing the last couple of weeks is this harvester reservoir model making. So I know Notorious BTC has been up here talking about it. If he is in the audience, I welcome you up here. We can continue to discuss that. Maybe see if we can get some consensus around that. Because also I think I don't know if it was alternatively or additionally to this model, someone had suggested splitting the mechanic between the reservoir and harvester. Maybe we can touch on how that affects it, how that plays a part in it. Otherwise, I got Mikey J in the audience. Coder Dan, if you can let him up on stage. And I see if you go to the Miro board, the Mikey J's model has been laid out there for you guys to have a look at. Because the document is quite extensive. I read the short version, admittedly, but the charts and the visuals, I do appreciate that. I'm sure a lot of you others will appreciate that as well. Good morning,
Hey,
Mikey J.
Hey. Yeah, so Notorious wasn't able to be here this week, but we did make some progress in terms of getting this simulation together in code. So far, we've just begun to simulate the current rules as they currently exist. Now that the simulation's built, it's pretty trivial for us to just sort of change variables in terms of different rules that people have suggested and kind of see how that changes the outputs. For anyone who hasn't had a chance, I posted it last night. But for anyone who hasn't had a chance to look at this, I encourage you to go over to GitHub, look at the README, see how there's a quick page about how the simulation works. But essentially what we have and what we're sort of starting with is two scenarios that Notorious BTC had outlined previously. One is a player who tends to craft new level 1 harvesters and expand outwards. I call that kind of the horizontal method of building, or in these charts, it's called the expander. And then the other style of player would be the upgrader, or what I call the vertical build out, meaning that you would build a smaller number of higher level harvesters. And one of the concerns Notorious brought up originally was the balance between the low level and high level harvesters. So we've got some initial output from the simulation. It's only a 200-day output because I need to make little adjustments to the strategies of the two players in terms of how they play late in the game, which I just finished up this morning. But you can I at least just wanted to kind of give the community a sense of, what some of the initial results were looking like. If you really want to dive into the numbers in the GitHub and the results folder, you can see the full CSV with just about everything the script tracks moment to moment. But the charts give you the broad overview of where it's at currently. I think so far we're seeing the patterns sort of play out in terms of what we thought between the two strategies. But I think we'll need to look at let the simulation run for the full 2 or 3 acts to really get a sense of where the crossover is in terms of how long it takes for the upgrader to kind of surpass the expander. And we also still need to look at some more edge case strategies, like what happens if the expander just stops at level 1. How does that affect their overall earnings? Right now, it's assuming that they're just going to kind of keep building, and when they run out of harvester space, they're going to just keep upgrading their harvesters. But I think it's worth looking at edge cases where someone might just stop at level 1 and just kind of collect the level 1 earnings, and how does that impact their earnings? So our plan in the coming week is to look at all of those different use cases. We could also, right now these are assuming spacious parcels, but we can certainly just run the simulation with different parcel sizes. So we have a lot of variables to crunch. And I think Notorious BTC and I just need to narrow down which variables are most effective to kind of compare and kind of get together a concise analysis for the community of some different scenarios. So that's pretty much where we're at. I'm happy to answer any questions about the simulation or how it's going, but that's pretty much where I'm at.
That's really interesting, and really appreciate the work you guys are putting in. I'm reading some of the additional notes that Hardcore's put on the Miro board here. You have 3 archetypes. Do you want to maybe touch on those and how those would play into the expander and the other one that you just mentioned?
Yeah, let me get those archetypes up.
Yeah.
So
there's the small farmer, empire builder, and the degen speculator.
Yeah, so the thing about the archetypes is the strategy they would use I could see either of those archetypes might be an expander or an upgrader depending upon the rule set. Right now, I would say it is looking like, and again, I want to just say these are very, early stage results. But it's looking like actually most of these players would probably use the same strategy, which is the expandor strategy. They would just do it differently in terms of how they allocate their capital. The humble farmer is a strategy which is more based around having sort of more limited resources at the beginning and looking at a player which is honestly, where 99% of players are, which is, hey, I have a certain amount I can invest in this. At some point, I'm going to exhaust that and I'm going to have to wait for income to reinvest. These simulations we're running now, again, we can configure this in any way, but just to kind of limit the different variables in scope, it just assumes that these bots, they start with pretty much unlimited funds, just so that we can compare the two on an even keel. But ultimately, in a final report, we would look at someone who has more limited funds, like the humble farmer, and just kind of see what their progress would look like throughout the course of the game. So, yeah, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm actually just looking at the charts here for the expandor and the upgrader. So if you guys want a visual of what he's talking about, head over to that Miro board. It has it all displayed out, so you actually can understand what's going on here. The document is quite long, but I'm gonna have a crack at it and actually try and read the whole thing. The short form was actually really interesting. I'm just reading this part about bots here, where it mentions all the roles the bots can do, and I think that's also something to definitely take into account while probably this model is being built. So it's good that you guys are thinking about that.
Yeah, and if anyone thinks of different, bot edge use case strategies, I mean, obviously we could fill in any number of strategies, but we're also trying to limit the number of variables so that, the data is sort of digestible. If we start having bots with like 20 different strategies across 3 different parcel sizes across 4 different rule sets, it's just going to turn into a nightmare. But if anyone thinks there's certain edge cases we should be taking into account, by all means, let me know, and we can create bots with those rules. And then in terms of next steps, what we're going to do is then tweak the rules of the game a little bit in terms of some of the things that have been suggested in terms of changing the harvester crafting recipes, or putting spill on the harvesters instead of the reservoirs, or limiting the number of harvesters per reservoir. Some of the more prevalent ideas that have been proposed that seem like they would be technically feasible. So if anyone is concerned about getting any one particular idea looked at that I haven't mentioned, just let me know, and we'll see if we can work that into the simulation as well.
Okay. And so my question is, with this model, once it's refined, finalized, it's fully functional, is this model more a tool to inform Pixelcraft as we're developing the Gotchiverse, or is this something that we need to implement before the harvesters even get released? Because I imagine this probably has implications on supply and how people are going to approach strategy, or is this more to inform Pixelcraft as we move forward?
I mean, I think it serves both use cases, right? I mean, I think the model is flexible moving forward. So if some harvesting rule change is proposed 6 months or a year from now, this is something we can go back to and adjust the model and see what the output is. So it's to help really inform. I mean, I know Pixelcraft has their own simulation in house. Coder Dan has mentioned, but this is good for the DAO to have for now and for the future. So the hope is that it'll help, again, because there have been proposed changes, harvesting changes thrown around in the DAO forum. This is a good way for us just to look at, what those would actually mean for the game as a whole. So.
Okay, good to know. Good to know. I know there was I don't know if this was alternatively mentioned or additionally mentioned, but the split mechanic between the reservoir and the harvester. So I believe right now the spill radius and the spill rates only attach to one structure, and I think it's been suggested. I don't know if this directly ties in with the modeling that you're doing, but it's been suggested that these two be split between the reservoir and the harvester. Anybody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that was a discussion last week that was kind of loosely tied to this.
Yeah, the model does take into account. So the model basically assumes you lose all spillover, only because there's just no way to really accurately model how much spillover someone's going to be able to pick up themselves. So the radius doesn't really matter. Um, but the spillover rate does matter. We don't have spillover rates published yet for the reservoirs, so I am just using the same rates as the alters, which probably won't be accurate to whatever's released, but it gives us a good starting point. So that's where we're at with that. But the radius wouldn't impact the model, just whatever the spillover rate for harvesters ends up being, or reservoirs
Okay.
rather. Yeah, and the model
Right.
can certainly put the spillover based on the harvester level rather than the reservoir level. So that'll be something we'll model out.
Yeah, excellent. That gives me a really good idea. Does anybody in the discussion have any questions in regards to the model? I'll take questions from the chat if you guys have anything specific. But I think we've gone over this as it's being developed, and I'm really looking forward to the final product. It's gonna, like you said, it's gonna really be a great tool for the DAO to use to inform some decision making and some discussion around specifically harvesters and Alchemica harvesting. Do you have anything else in regards to your model? I just wanted to make sure we touch on it for today and maybe get an update, which was great.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the opportunity to just give a progress update, and we should have a lot more to share next week. Notorious BTC will be back on the grid, and I'll be working with him this week and on the final report.
Okay, yeah, thanks. Thank you for that.
Thanks.
So I'm moving on to the next thing. Do we have Thunderfish in the house? Do I see him? Let me see if he's in the, because I know he was talking about wearables related discussion, and I think specifically pertaining to fixing one of the wearables. Well, I think it was more than one of the wearables, but the link suit, I believe he wanted to address that. But if he's not in here, we'll take that up next week when he's in here. Yeah, I don't see him. But so I guess we'll move on to the next item, which is estates linked to the altar level versus a lodge. And maybe Coder Dan, I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on this. This is something that people were, I guess, discussing. Having the estate linked to the altar level because it makes sense while you're expanding out your land parcels. If anybody has more background on this discussion, I'd love to get you up on stage.
Yeah, I've seen there was quite a discussion in the DAO discussion channel about this. We initially put it as the lodge because we've kind of thought of estates as being kind of you're not going to be linking like one or two parcels. You're probably going to want to have several parcels linked together, and the mindset for that was kind of that guilds would want to invest heavily into estates because as they level up, their guild channeling gets more powerful. They would be able to limit their spillover to a smaller radius, and they would want to have a larger space to channel it within and capture more of the Alchemica that spills down from the guild channeling. So that's why we limited. Well, that's why we linked it to the guild, the Gotchi Lodge, because we've always thought it's more of a guild oriented feature. But if the DAO believes there's a strong reason that it should, this is not saying that it's only for guilds, but it was more kind of oriented towards them and larger like players that are going to have a lot of bigger parcels. But if people just want to have like one or like if you want to link two parcels next to each other, it does. Well, you could just first of all you could just have a level 1 Gotchi Lodge, right? That you'd be able to do that pretty easily. And the Gotchi Lodge, it's not just going to be for guilds. It's also going to be place where you can decorate, you can have hangouts in there. It'll be a very social space. So it's probably something that people are gonna want to get anyway on their parcel. They might not want to level it up all the way, but I don't see it being a huge deterrent to having like a couple parcels linked together. So I'm curious what the use case, like what's the reasoning for wanting to switch it to the altar model? I'm reading here
Yeah, I
what
see.
hardcore posting.
Yeah, he's put the price up for the L1 Lodge is about 11,000 FUD, so 160 Ghost. I guess he makes a good point about the interparcel space in a humble estate is quite a bit, which if you walled it in, I guess would make for a pretty good net if you have a busy area. He's 33% of the estate would be free interparcel land. I guess in my opinion, what you're saying does make sense, where the lodge should be tied to estates. Because I guess it is more for guilds, but I think the argument for having an altar would maybe be it's more favoring individuals who might want to link only a couple parcels together, maybe not like a whole bunch of them, a couple
Mhm.
humbles. Maybe you link like 6 or 7 humble parcels together and have a little mini estate,
So I mean, what's the problem we're trying to solve with this modification here? Is it we're trying to save players money basically, or I mean, is that the main reason?
Well, I guess to
Right.
make the estate feature more obtainable, I guess for someone who might not want to upgrade their lodge to high level so they can link more humble parcels together, for example.
Yeah, I mean, the other way to do that would be to say, right now, I think it's every level gives you one more parcel that you can link. Maybe that's too stingy. Maybe it needs to be two per parcel, two parcels per level with the guild. I mean, that would be another way to go about solving this problem. Because with the altar, it's a little bit tricky because I mean, I think a lot of people are going to have a level 4 to 5 altar, and so that would basically mean they're able to create an estate by default without any extra work. So I mean, maybe that's what the community wants. Our perspective on that is a guild is kind of an extra feature, and so there's a little bit of an investment to get that feature in getting the guild. Maybe maybe if we're only trying to link like 2 or 3 parcels, maybe just having a level 2 Gotchi Lodge can accomplish that purpose. Maybe my meaning is maybe we're too stingy on the number of parcels that can be linked.
Yeah, and I mean that's basically it's the obtainability issue. I think maybe for people who are thinking of linking their couple humbles together to make a mini estate for whatever strategic reason. In my mind right now, I can think of buying 4 to 6 humble parcels in District 1 or District 2 and walling them in and then capturing the spilled loose alchemica on there, or maybe even having a reservoir build on one and then having humble or a harvester build on the other, and then you can just do a batch claim, or there's like some strategic reasons I guess around doing that. I think other options, hardcore just mentioned here, you can consider a humble to be 132, like the fraction 132nd of a parcel for linking purposes. And then number 2, the altar could be a gate for the humble and reasonable, same code, but call it a gated community. Yeah. Those are some things to consider, I guess, in terms of how it could be approached. Like, what are thoughts around what Coder Dan was saying about just increasing the number that each lodge would allow? So level 1 would allow maybe a couple more humbles or a couple humbles compared to just a single.
Yeah.
You see what people think. What are some of the other benefits to having an estate, besides the actual space factor of it? I know somebody had said visibility, but what are you guys or I think it was written somewhere in one of the chapters that it would allow for visibility. In what sense would it allow for visibility? Just because of the size? Like if it's all walled in kind of thing?
Yeah, it's more of
Yeah.
like
Okay.
seeing there's no benefits that are currently being considered that are not in the Gotchiverse Bible at this moment. So what's there is basically the benefits that we are planning to allocate. I think the biggest benefit is just being able to wall off space, because the Gotchiverse is built on this idea that when you channel, some of your channeling is going to spill over to the nearby people, that's going to enrich them. So if you're planning to build an estate and wall it off, yeah, you're capturing more for yourself. The people near you are going to be capturing less. So it's a bit selfish to do that, and which is fine. It's perfectly rational to do that. And that's part of the game. So that works for alchemical channeling. Like once you've gotten to a level, if you have a level 9 altar and you have a big estate, you're basically going to capture 100% of the alchemica that is going from your altar, and your altar can channel once every hour. So that's 24 channelings that can happen in that walled off estate. So to me, it just seems like there should be a cost for that kind of selfish behavior. And this is not saying selfish behavior is bad. It's just there should be a play cost that is added on for doing that, in my opinion.
Okay, because it is, I guess, not going against, but it's a little bit different from the general idea of channeling and spillover, is that everybody's sharing it with everybody else. So if you're going to be the guy who wants to keep it all to
Yeah.
himself, then that's fine, but you're going to have to pay the ape tax on that, I guess, is the way you guys look at it.
Pretty much. Yeah, and
Dr.
again,
Wagme makes a, I was just going to say,
for
Dr. Wagme also makes a quick, good point.
go forever. So once you
Oh, go ahead. Sorry. I think your audio is a little
sorry,
delayed.
I'm on a bad Wi-Fi connection here, so it might be rough. You guys can go ahead.
I was just gonna say Dr. Wagme makes a good point. Is it possible to allow varying numbers? For example, a level 1 lodge could connect 16 humbles, 8 reasonables, but 2 spacious.
Yeah, I mean that could be easily coded. That would be fairly trivial to code.
Okay, yeah, Tommy Gotchi also coming in with a suggestion. Lodge level 1, 8 humbles or 2 reasonables, no spacious. Lodge level 2, 16 humbles or 4 reasonables, 1 spacious. Lodge level 3, 32 humbles or 8 reasonables or 2 spacious. I mean, it's interesting, and it's good to know that it's possible to code. Like it wouldn't be too much, on your guys' end. So I guess just some things to consider there. I don't have anything significant in terms of land that I'd consider a huge estate. I have a couple humble parcels that are close together, but
Yeah.
I see where you guys are coming from with the estates.
I just think that like the alchemical channeling is something, and guild channeling to some extent, but especially alchemical channeling. If you, it's going to pay itself off probably within a couple months if you channel every day, and you have level 1 walls around it. And I mean people can still come into your parcel even if you have walls, but it'll so So there would be a cost to maintaining those walls. But it over the long period, you would get that back, even if you had your Gotchi Lodge on your humble parcel. I mean, I've seen people saying that the argument is that a humble parcel can't afford a Gotchi Lodge. To me, that's a little bit of a weird argument, because the idea is that you're not building one, you're not taking into account the yield of one parcel on your Gotchi Lodge. You're linking multiple parcels, so that means you probably have a couple parcels to link. So you're not thinking just about the yield paying for one level one Gotchi Lodge from one reasonable parcel. So that it's like that argument just seems a bit strange to me. And so let's see, well, I was saying the alchemical channeling cost, once you've walled that space off, the radius is going to be probably fairly small if you linked multiple spaces together, that you could have this kind of monopoly on all the alchemical channeling that's coming from that altar.
Yeah, that would be like the end goal for building out an estate, and that's the strategy around that, to upgrade the altar to that high level, reduce the spillover to the minimum amount, and then expand your area estate to capture the actual small radius that it has. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, that is pretty much the goal, kind of one of the goals of the game. So if we keep it to the altar, like if we removed the Gotchi Lodge prerequisite and said, and now it's going to be based on the altar, we could, but then we're not. No one's paying for that extra cost of all the alchemical that's going to be going directly to that player forever. And again, maybe it's not a problem. It just seems like when there's a good reason to have players who they want to spend their alchemica on these kind of things, it's always good for the economy. So it's kind of a situation of, will the players want to do this? And where's the overlap between what's good for the economy and what's good for the players, what their players would want to do?
Yeah, and I mean that's kind of what Frost Coriolis makes a good point. The reality is this is a game that involves real money. There are players who want to create an advantage for themselves at the expense of others, and players who are more community focused. In my opinion, Pixelcraft is doing a good job finding the balance between different facets of the player base. And I think that's something to consider as well. Like you said, is not everybody is going to be thinking about that. Some people are going to be more focused on the lodge as a tool to expand their community or to attract more people for events or whatever other functions, community-based functions, the lodge is going to have as well. I think that needs to be taken into account. Um, aside from the estates as well, which is also an important issue. Dr. Wagme also follows up with another comment. I think the problem we're addressing is the attractiveness of estate building and thus lodges. I want humble and reasonable owners to feel like it's worth to build and upgrade their estates. So I guess this would be like a secondary use case to the main intent of the initial use case, which was for larger guilds to wall in large adjacent parcels to reduce, and while also reducing spillover. Um, and so like this is what we're talking about, is kind of a secondary use for the main behind the main idea of what these were meant for. And I guess that's not to say that we're removing utility from the lodges in terms of what they can do. Like, the estate building is just a minor part of what the lodge is meant for, right? It's like one
Yeah,
aspect. It's like one facet of it.
yeah. The lodge it's also a very social area. We're planning to add features lodge chat, showing off various like NFTs within the lodge itself. And I think there's a lot of things that can be done with the lodge to make it just a fun social space. So there's going to be some incentive to want to have a lodge on your parcel anyway. So there you have the guild channeling aspect, which is a financial incentive. You have the estate building aspect, which is kind of a mix between social and kind of a flex, like flexing off your big parcel. And then you have kind of a pure social, which is like having your buddies over in your guild and chilling inside the guild, showing off your NFTs inside, curating that space.
Okay, so I mean, what I could see happening is people start building the lodges, they see all the utility of it, they get really involved with that, and maybe they, maybe some players just don't even care, about the estate aspect of it, if that's just one facet of what the lodge can really do. And it sounds like the other use cases you mentioned are going to be much larger use cases for the lodge, more relevant to the majority of people. And maybe that's the way it was supposed to be from the start.
Yeah, if we take away the estate building, I mean, you're going to be left with the guild channeling, and then you're just probably not going to see as many guild gotchi lodges. That would be one aspect. You won't see as many, and then also you won't have any sinks from the gotchi lodges being built. So that's just a little bit less of a sink for the economy.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, there was another comment made by Hardcore. The bubble up solution will probably make it so that trapping Alchemica inside your estate is a power move. And I could see that that being another reason for people building the smaller estates, simply for the strategic reason of trying to capture the bubble ups.
Yeah, I think that was an interesting point that he made. Yeah, very, very good point.
There's quite an extensive. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say there's some discussion about having like a different rule set for humbles and reasonables versus spacious. We try to not do that kind of stuff because it just seems like it's like making the spacious owners a different class of like citizen within the Gotchiverse. I would prefer if we just have one rule set for all types of parcels. Now, however, above we did mention that maybe a lodge level allows you to link different parcel types. I think that would be a little bit different. Like having a lodge level 1 could be 8 humbles or 2 reasonables, or 16 humbles and 4 reasonables, 1 spacious. That would be probably more acceptable than saying a humble and a reasonable require an altar to create an estate, whereas now a spacious requires a gotchi lodge, because the spacious, you guys have more money, so you can afford the gotchi lodge. That I don't think that would really go over very well.
Yeah, exactly. I like Dr. Regmi's suggestion there with adding the different quantities for each scale. Speaking of bubble ups, could we get a little bit more like color or background on how bubble ups are going to work? Maybe get some more details on that. Like, is there going to be a release schedule for when these bubble ups happen? Will it be sporadic, or is there like a specific allocation of Alchemica just for bubble ups? Are those some of the things you guys have kind of? Is there any consensus around any of that stuff?
There is a specific allocation, part of the gameplay allocation that we have. As far as when and how to use it, we have not really done any research on that on our side yet. There's too many other features that we've been super focused on trying to get, obviously this launch done, and then the harvesters reservoirs, and then the traits, and then finally the Gotchi Lodge. That's pretty much the order. So if the DAO wants to, continue discussing how to handle the bubble ups, this idea kind of came from the DAO anyway. So I think it'd be great if there's more discussion on where you would like when what kind of schedule, and then how much you'd like to do it over what kind of time frame.
Yeah, I mean, I have a little idea around this one game I used to play. I can't remember that. I think it was Albion, but basically they had a moon in the game, and it was like the release schedule for the treasure drops were based on like the phases of the moon. Oh, sorry, just a side comment there. I see Hardcore has his hand up there for getting on stage. But this game had a mechanic for the phases of the moon, and whenever you would get like a full moon for that couple days, you would have the drops happening. So
That's
everybody
fun,
kind of
yeah.
expected a certain time of the month there would be like some sort of an event that would be happening, and it would never be the exact same days, but it would kind of shift. So maybe like it would shift by like a couple days every month. And then people get this opportunity to get all this loot, like, and maybe that could really play into the lore of the Gotchiverse. Like maybe the Alchemica under the Gotchiverse is a little unstable, and like every month or so there's a little bit of underground activity and some of it bubbles up to the surface.
Yeah, I think on the last call, or maybe the one before that, we discussed like having on-chain events triggers bubble ups. I think that's a pretty fun idea. If someone gets liquidated, or if there's some sort of on-chain event that could trigger them, that would be pretty cool. But I do like the event, kind of an event that everyone knows is coming, but it's at the same time or a different time every month. It's also pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think just some things we can continue to discuss, debate.
Yeah.
So I'm just
At this
looking through
stage,
my
we're mostly focused on kind of lapping up all the Alchemica that's coming out, making sure that there's not too much Alchemica coming out that's gonna put too much sell pressure on the price of Alchemica. So that's kind of the main priority, because if the coins start going down a lot, then it's gonna kind of become a death spiral. So main priority right now is just to ensure there's actually more demand than there is supply for the Alchemica, I believe, at this point, which is really great. So we kind of want to keep it like that until there's more stuff to spend the Alchemica on within the game. It becomes more fun. Like there's fun stuff to do that isn't yield oriented. It's more fun oriented. So Axie Infinity is just having this realization now, and it's kind of destroying their game. So we want to make sure that from the beginning, not everything that you can spend your Alchemica on is going to be yield oriented.
Yeah, it's like that idea of, I think the way you said it was Bevlin goods. I guess it's like things that people just hold
Vevlin.
just to, yeah, for just because it's cool to own. It's like a Rolex is no different than any other. I mean, it is in many ways in terms of quality and stuff, but there are other watches that come close that are not a Rolex, that are much more affordable. But you buy a Rolex for the name because it's like a Rolex. It's kind of like that, like a brand, like a flex. Yeah, I mean, that's the whole reason behind it, and which has always been a big deal with all these games, right? Like I remember playing a lot of games where MMORPG style, where you're grinding it out for hours and hours, maybe even days, for a specific item, just so people know you did that for that item.
Yeah.
So we have one more. We'll have a couple more things here. Land 3. Do we know what's like? Are we close to fixing like the voting mechanics? I know that's something that we need to get sorted out so we can push core prop through. But from my understanding, it's pretty much passed, right? Unofficially.
Yeah. Let me check we did just put the core props out, I believe yesterday, right? So let's see. I do see, if you guys haven't voted already, AGIP 30 and AGIP 29 are both live. Post them here. Definitely go vote. And I believe the voting power, let's see, I'm gonna check my DMs here. The issue is really the main cause here, I believe, is lending, because some of these queries for lending are very big, very, very big. And that's definitely having an issue on some aspects of the snapshot query. I do see there was a fix of about a couple hours ago that might have fixed it. I think we were able to clean up the query a little bit. But we should probably check. I'm not 100% sure on that yet. I do see we are at 2.6 million ghosts. So definitely we're very far away from quorum for either of these AGIPs, which is a little bit I don't think I've ever seen that happen before. So there's probably still some issue with voting power.
Okay. And I mean, I know we're aiming for June, and hopefully we see the outcome, soon, within the next week or so. Does June still look likely for Land 3? Do you guys have a estimated, projected date for if this thing does go through, which
Mhm.
I have a feeling it will, but, once it does officially go through, is there a date already allocated for that in June?
I believe it was, so we have the raffle, right? The raffle's going to be the 12th, and then I would expect that the auction will be after that, probably in the second half of June. I'm
Okay,
I'm a
so we
little I guess I'm a little curious about the land. I guess the main impetus behind that is, now that we obviously have too few gotchis to channel all parcels in one 24-hour period. The main impetus with the land, I guess, is people just want to have more land to use with their harvesters and reservoirs.
Yeah, from my understanding, that was some of the conversation that went around that. Also, the fact that I know it had been mentioned that, if we can get a high utilization rate for the current amount of Aavegotchis we have, that there there would be plenty of Aavegotchis to farm additional land. Um, but that's, we still have to see that actually materialize. I'm just reading some of the comments here.
Yeah, same. Yeah, there's some, let's see, missing voting power for Ghost Matic staked for glitter. Yeah, all the staked ghost glitter isn't just, there's so many contracts to add to Snapshot all the time. We have not added the glitter staking contract yet. So if you have any ghosts staked in the glitter staking contract, that has not been added to Snapshot yet. That could also partly explain the even lower voting power that we're seeing.
Yeah, I imagine from your guys' end it's tricky because, for almost a year and a half, or a little over a year and a half, most of the assets were allocated to each player. Like everybody had their own gotchis, their own land, their own wearables in their wallets, and now we see different arrangements happening. Things are moving around, getting staked in pools that haven't been registered yet for
Yeah, and
voting
we don't
power.
own, we don't own Snapshot. So every time we want to do a query, like change a query, we have to make a PR with them. We have to test it. They have to test it. They have to look at it, and then they have to merge it into their repo. So it just takes time to get that kind of stuff done. And there's back and forth always with their team. So one explanation for why it does take so long to get these things through. And then, I mean, recently we really thought that the query was working. This was like last week, because it was appearing correct when people clicked the voting mode, like when the pop-up, it showed you your correct voting power. But when you actually submitted the vote, the voting power went away. So I'd never seen that issue before, and that's still kind of very strange. I don't really know why that's happening on their side, but I think we're getting close to fixing it. The glitter staking should be fairly easy to handle. It's another query. The thing is with Snapshot, they have like a timeout for how many queries you can do. So if we have a lot of assets and a lot of queries right now, and if it gets too long, they're just not going to be able to process our queries anymore. And that would mean we have too much that we're trying to do, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's a lot going. There's a lot going on trying to get it all out, while also having it run smoothly, right? I mean, that's always another challenge as well, to have everything running smooth, not lagging. And I appreciate the work you guys are putting in. I think everybody does. It's just a matter of getting clarity, which is a great. It's great that we have these meetings to at least know what you guys are doing on the back end there. And I think some of it is out of your hands because you gotta deal with Snapshot. So hopefully, now that everything's been rolled out, it can start getting integrated back in.
Yep. Yeah. Now we're maturing a little bit. There's less new stuff being added, so it'll be a lot easier to start linking the proper contracts up.
Yeah, great, excellent. So we touched on bubble ups, we touched on land, estates, level 9 model. There's one thing left on the agenda here, and that is to get some consensus around eyes. It's something that we've been discussing for a couple meetings, and I think the consensus is moving away from utility. And in the chat, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're moving away from actual utility or economic incentives given to eyes, and moving more towards, again, the flex. But now we have to come to consensus on what exactly that's going to mean. And moving forward, if everybody is on the same page with that, we can start talking about what exactly is this aesthetic flex going to look like in the Gotchiverse. How do we want the eyes represented? Because the one issue I see right now with eyes is they're so beautifully displayed on the UI right now. When you go to the bazaar or you're going to your wallet, my gotchis, and you can see them very beautifully displayed. But you can't see that in the Gotchiverse when you're zoomed out like 50x, right? It's like you won't even notice a double myth eyes if it's walking by or whatever. So that's something to address. And also we could address the fact that when you are covering the eyes, nobody knows that you have that specific kind of eye. Now I think a glow would definitely address a lot of that, but we already have that allocated to the collateral types. So I don't know really how we would be able to work that in, or if there'd be an alternative. And then the one I thought of is maybe coordinating the color and font of your text chat with the eye color and eye shape. So each eye shape would have its own font, each eye color would have its own color. And then you would know from the colors and the fonts in the chat, that this guy has this type of eyes. I mean, that's just my one suggestion I threw out there, but I'm curious to know what other people are thinking on this.
Yeah, I know Hardcore is kind of the lead on the DAO side about this. Yep, here we go.
So, yeah, we got some.
Last time we talked about kind of like being able to shoot out kind of like a bat signal with your eyes in the shape of the collateral.
Oh yes, that was another one actually. That's one I didn't mention. Is the collateral, or sorry, the eye color being associated with the laser color, and then maybe the eye shape is associated with the bat signal per se. That would be really cool. It would add some extra life and color to the Gotchiverse too, I think. But let's see, we got some comments here. Hardcore. We could do the eyes as a layered thing that evolves with time. As we find things that they can modify in the verse, we add it as appropriate. Over time, it will grow and end up meaning more and more. Simply doing a cool thing first, and then promising there's more later, is exactly the kind of collector speculation bait that the eyes deserve. I see where he's coming from with that. It's just feeding more into the speculation, which is exactly what the eyes were from the start. They weren't associated with any of the traits, and they also were not upgradable. So the eye shape and color that you get, that's what you get. That stays with your Aavegotchi for life. And so maybe they can be other things tied to it. Like I've had this idea of quests. You guys will eventually be having some sort of quest in game, and maybe the eye shape and color are also tied to that. Maybe this could be used as a gating function again to get gotchis to work together. Like maybe you need to have one double myth eyes in your crew to be able to finish this quest. Because you need to unlock maybe you need to unlock something with your laser eyes, and it only works with that one eye shape and type. It doesn't have to be double myth eyes, but it could be whatever eye shape and type, and you have to go find that gotchi either in the rental gotchi lending and rent one to do your mission, or you could find somebody in your guild that has those eyes. And this is very common in other games too, like World of Warcraft, where you need to have a certain player who has specific items to get into a dungeon, or you need the special key from a different quest. These like gating functions are pretty common in other games, and I don't see why we couldn't implement that here too.
Yeah, I've been thinking about it a lot, like what other games do, because it's like most other games don't have a core feature like eyes that is something that you can't change forever. Like they might have, okay, you're a barbarian, or you're an archer, you're a necromancer, but they're not flexes, they're just character types. This is a very interesting little mechanic that we have here. There's not a I can't really think of a lot of precedents for it. Maybe in the games that I've played at least, but maybe you guys have more ideas for other games that have this type of like flex. One game I used to play, they had a baldric. It was like a sash that you had. You would get that sash as you leveled up. Basically, if you're level 10, you would have like the level 10 sash, or level 50 would have like a really nice level 50 sash. But again, that's like linked to the progress of the player itself, not something that you're born with.
Yeah. Yeah, I see the point. I mean, I don't think there's room for the eye traits to be upgradable, because then I think I think they might get upset if they have specific OPIs, and you know, they're not going to be as OP anymore. Um, Prophecy's posted 2 images, some ideas he has. Abstract for eye shape. A simple variation in spread adds greater variety and gives options to create an area of effect gotchis versus single opponent DPS builds. We can carry on to guide weapon specs. So this is tying the eye shape into like battle utility, while the lasers with dedicated range weapons Yeah, so this can help shape newborn gotchis and the type of warrior they want to be as they level up. So it's tied to, again, like the player type and battle mechanics largely. It's interesting. I don't know if you got to see that, Dan. His abstract there. His reasoning is putting beam width on a scale alongside beam duration adds great levels of variety to playstyle and customization with very little adjustment by developers. So this is playing into like a battle mechanic. But then I think it's interesting. The only thing I would say is it adds another layer of um, complexity to the battle mechanics, which we don't know yet. Like I really do want to know more about how exactly the meta is going to like form around the battle mechanics before we start adding more battle mechanics to it.
Yeah,
But I do
I
think
agree
that's a
on
great
that.
idea.
We're going to be having we have a very, very lengthy combat design doc that Neon Kong has been preparing, and there's definitely a lot more stuff in there that we probably won't end up having, but we're going to be going over that most likely next week, and kind of confirming the things that we like that is doable on the dev side without a huge amount of work, and that the community would like, and then that'll be in a future chapter of the Gotchiverse Bible that will be open to community feedback. So yeah, I think we adding more stuff to the battle system at this point really is kind of just going to complicate things even more. I kind of like the aura idea, like being able to switch to a pink or green aura, or like basically switching from your collateral aura to your eye color aura could be, nice. Might be pretty interesting. Because an aura is something that's very, very obvious that people can see.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of engagement around the eye traits discussion. You can definitely tell a lot of people want to know where this is heading. But I feel like the last couple conversations we've had have moved away from adding direct utility to the eyes. And I think you made a good point last time around that yes, adding utility to the eyes may add some economic value to rarer Aavegotchis, to the double myth eyes specifically, and maybe other rare Aavegotchis with more scarce eye types. But it may actually add a negative economic value to the vast majority of Aavegotchis that have the common or less rare, like uncommon eye shapes and colors.
Yeah, and also my hunch, my intuition on that is it wouldn't just be for the commons. It would actually bring the value of the godlike just being pure speculation for the aesthetics. I think it would actually bring it down a little bit. Because you'd say, oh well, now the godlike eyes give you 10% extra damage, so I'm just gonna value it 10% higher than a normal, gotchi, rather than 20x because they're godlikes. There might be some reduction in economic, like in the speculative value if you did that. But that's my intuition. I don't know how much it's I think we can see from the NFT space as a whole, generally the NFTs that have so-called economic utility, as far as they're linked to a token or they have a game like we do, if they start out as a no utility token and then they add utility later, I generally think it doesn't really help their economic value. They generally they kind of tank after that. I think Cool Cats is a good example that after they added in their game, it seems like the floor price has gone down a lot, and their tokens like basically dying. Whereas the ones that don't have any utility, the punks, kind of the apes, it's the one called like Ether Rock. It just seems like people collect it because they want to collect it and they think they can flip it later. there's no thought about utility. So that just seems to be my observation of the space in whole.
Yeah, and I guess some of that is baked into the Aavegotchi then in terms of the eyes is, the traits themselves, the four battle traits, they're not speculative. They're very much this is what you get, this is what it will do as more
Yeah.
information comes out. The eye traits are like, well, what could this be, right? I mean, it doesn't stop another game developer from adding OPness to the eyes in their game, whether it's a mini game or whatever they want to do with it. That could be
Yeah.
implemented, but yeah. But I guess from Aavegotchi themselves, it's this speculative, looks rare. Well, it is rare, verifiably, but it looks rare factor. So I guess that's one thing to not forget is other game developers, if they are making a mini game, if I was to make a mini game, I'd definitely add some special OPness to the double myth eyes or the more rare gotchis. Maybe they get a special weapon or something. I think that'd be kind of fun. But
Yeah.
that's I guess not something you guys want to implement as a core developer of the Aavegotchi.
Yeah, if it's linked to making the Gotchi super OP just from birth, it seems like that would be, it's just, I don't know how healthy that would be for the game, like the overall game long term.
And I also like that speculative nature. Hardcore makes a good point. We could also just speculate wildly forever, and PC could sneak attack, ship us little cool things that are tied to something I related every 6 to 9 months. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, that ties back in with calls back to the quests. Like, I'd love to see you guys do a quest where, you need to find a specific eye shape, eye color to help you finish the quest or something, and I think maybe it would add some more um, collaboration to the game. It's like you have to go find a group of gotchis that'll help you with the quest. Um, so I guess it
Yeah.
leaves the door open that way.
Yeah,
A lot of
I'll continue thinking on it. Last week was
Mhm.
very shipping oriented and security oriented. So hopefully next week we can have a little bit more breathing room. Well, just heading forward, we'll have a little bit more breathing room on um the fun stuff, because now that we've gotten most of the contract stuff out of the way, should have a little bit more time to think about the fun part.
Yeah, yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun to see these develop, and looking forward to other people's, just the general feedback on this as we keep developing, building this out.
Hey guys.
Um, Good morning, Harambe.
I
How's it going?
Good. How you doing?
Very well, sir.
Pretty good.
I actually had a side note. I know Yannick brought up the eyes having wearable effects. I've had this idea brewing in the background, and I kind of wanted to get Dan's technical opinion and get some brain juices flowing with the DAO. So I think it could be a really good token sync and add a lot of depth to our wearables, but I'm worried about the token types and how it could be implemented, if it would have to be like something off chain. I'm just not very versed technically, but my idea is essentially gems that could be found or crafted in the Gotchiverse. So the use would be enchanting wearables with enhancer stats. Each wearable would get X number of gem slots. You could think Diablo or any other type of game like this, depending on what the community consensus is. Different Alchemica could work with different effect modifiers. This could add the avenue for new leveling systems like enchanting, gem cutting, and mining. There could be random event ore veins that are similar to bubble ups. So these random mineable nodes could pop up and have a small % chance of yielding an uncut gem when you mine them. But normally they'll only give Alchemica of their deposit type. So that'd be like a rarer case to get the gem. And you could use blank installation to cut the gems. Alternative, you could use an item to cut it. We could have gem cutting level rise with each interaction. So the higher your gem cutting, the higher quality cut you can make, and the higher gem class you could work with. So when it comes to enchanting, I was thinking that we could use the wearable buffs such as like lifesteal and stuff like that and give a small percentage. The more you enchant, the higher your level goes and the more potential buffs you unlock. Or do we just want enchanting level to have access to every buff and the level just has an effect on how extreme the buff could be? I was thinking gem type / cut quality and enchanting level could no, I'm repeating the same thing there. Okay, certain gem types could be exclusive with certain buff types. So we could say like there's a lot of FUD enchantments or Keck type enchantments or something. And the Alchemica amount required will vary for different enchantments and scale up. I'm not sure the math on it to make it a fair and balanced and for the massive pay to earn world that's coming. The Alchemica will be burned like in crafting, and a chain link VRF call will occur to determine the enchantment roll. So I'm thinking like basically the buff amount here, maybe the buff type. Maybe we actually say like you could randomly get the lifesteal buff or more damage to walls or range power. And then a side thought, disenchanting possibility. So I'm just wondering like the technical implementation on the token types though from you, because I don't want to make this whole written up document and you say, yeah, we can't actually change, the effects of wearables, but I could see this making more people want to burn Alchemica. It gives more variation in the PvP aspect. So like, and I think we should be able to sell these wearables with these buffs on them. So it might make the unenchanted wearables worth a little less, I would say, but I think it would give a lot of value to people who go out of their way to enchant them. That's it. Thanks, guys.
So the wearables are ERC 1155, which means they don't have their own token IDs. At least that's the main difference between 721s, which are like the Aavegotchis, the parcels, and 1155s, which are the wearables, the installations, raffle tickets. Is those are more, they're called like semi-fungible because they don't have a token ID that is associated that you can develop and build stuff on. They're all the same type, just like they're basically like ERC20 tokens, except they have a little bit extra metadata. That's the main difference. So if you said, okay, I want to enchant a specific waifu pillow with like a certain gem, that would be pretty well. You could do it. The gem would have to be a 721, and the waifu. So the waifu pillow would basically be linked to the gem, not the other way around. The complexity was when we would need to then take that 721 and link it over to the Aavegotchi so that you know that the Aavegotchi is wearing the enchanted wearable. That would be the hard part, and that would be pretty complex to do, I think. So one way you maybe could do it is the gem would, like Aavegotchis could just have slots for the
I was
gems.
wondering if that was a good workaround too, I do like the idea of it being on the wearable, but I could see, it doesn't seem like there's an easy workaround. Appreciate you explaining that.
It would be like an extra wearable that's just for gameplay stuff, like a gem. You can say, okay, each gotchi has one gem slot they can equip, basically. That would be one way to do it. It's just you wouldn't have the coolness of saying like, oh, this weapon is imbued with this simple gem. So
yeah, I just see it as like a way we could introduce, like those mining aspects and other things, because I would like it to become a full-fledged RPG. Like me personally, I'm a gamer. Like, I like the most advanced in the new type of games, and I see, with designer Dave on the team, this going very far in that direction. I could see, 40-man like dungeons and stuff like that, where you have to coordinate with, a lot of people, and that's what's going to keep people here playing. Like, not just the farming,
Definitely.
Anyways, thanks guys. Appreciate it.
Yep. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, interesting.
Time says, don't we have 8 more slots? Yeah, we do have a couple more slots that we can use. So if we wanted to add a gem slot, basically, that would be very doable, I think.
And it sounds like Harambe's put a lot of thought into this. This is
Mhm.
the way it strikes me is this could be an evolution of gameplay rather than the initial gameplay that comes out with wearables and like the battle mechanics.
Yeah.
This could be like a layer that gets built on top as once we have things figured out with the basic battle mechanics.
Yeah, it's
And then
like
move
even
on.
Diablo 2, they didn't have what they called crests, right? I think. And then Diablo 2, the BAL release introduced the crests, the kind of the different recipes that you could do with that. So I think there's definitely precedent. Even Axie recently, they didn't used to have crests and stuff, but they recently introduced them into their new version. So I think it's definitely something that it's a little bit more complex. It adds a little bit more depth to the gameplay, and it's definitely a good thing for like an expansion.
Yeah, exactly. It'll be interesting to see that if it plays out. There was one more thing. I know you got to go soon, so try and cover everything here. The last
Yeah, I
thing.
did want to bring up the token swap if
Oh
anyone has
yeah,
any ideas, because we've the thing about the token swap, we've had this idea for at least like 2 or 3 months, I think. But because of the voting power issue, we just didn't put it out because we didn't want there to be any issues with that. But unfortunately, the voting power just is not perfectly fixed yet. But when we did notice the community talking about all of that DAI and like staking the DAI and doing stuff with it, so we felt it would be a good time to, even though the voting power isn't totally fixed, at least start kicking off the conversation, and so that the community knows that we have kind of have this idea.
I'm just looking at it now. Just, token swap, 1.75 million DAI from Aavegotchi DAO for Ghost from Pixelcraft Studios.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, our generally like we try to diamond hands our revenue as much as possible, because currently most of our revenue is in Ghost. We have recently the new Alchemica stream that is quite significant. If Alchemica can hold its price up, we don't really want to have to liquidate that. Obviously, the Alchemica at this state, liquidating it would not be very good. The Ghost is also something that we really don't want to liquidate if unless it's totally necessary. And so that's why we have the idea for the token swap. But the thing about currently our revenue is majority in tokens. We don't have revenue in ETH. We don't have revenue in DAI. We don't have revenue in fiat. We are working on some merch. Can potentially do some. We can sell merch in the future with Aavegotchis. That would bring in some fiat revenue, which would be very helpful. But until that's up and running, we are very, very fiat poor at this point, which is it's definitely an interesting problem to have. We know we do know that the curve is kind of a source of revenue just in general for our ecosystem that uh doesn't affect anything if it's sold. So I think it's a very cool opportunity that we have here.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, this is an interesting proposal. I'll just read in the last bit there. Such operating expenses are anticipated, but we have to acknowledge that these subscriptions and invoices almost always insist on traditional banking, so fiat, and that would be for running the servers and whatnot, other associated expenses. And it's a good point you make. You prefer not to have to sell the Ghost in order to achieve your growth budget. Okay. I'll have to continue reading this to get more background on it, but it is an interesting solution. Let's see. Some comments here. Mikey J's offering to host the game servers in exchange for Ghost.
Yeah, I mean, our setup is to do this kind of one instance, multiple server kind of setup that we have. It's not like we have one game server or two game servers running. We have an entire fleet of game servers that are built on Kubernetes that are auto scaling and like just going up and down. So it's not something you can just say, oh well, why don't you guys just add a game server, right? It's just not that simple. I wish it were, but yeah, we have quite the infra, and we also rely on Redis, which is Redis Enterprise, which is definitely not cheap either. And there's a lot of optimization that we can do and that we are going to be looking into, like reducing the data transfer, which will be great for performance. It'll also be great for the budget. But at the same time, as more players come in, all those optimizations will be nullified because there'll be more data transferring anyway.
M Sanchez World has a question there. What about equity crowdfunding? He says this is usually where companies fundraise to VCs, but equity crowdfunding would make us the investors.
Yeah, we have not really talked about that a lot. It'd be a lot of our user base is American, like the player base is American, and so any sort of that kind of stuff just puts a target on our back even more from the SEC. That's why we really haven't gone with any of that kind of like path forward. So we're fairly anti-VC as well, which I mean, some VCs are great and they add a lot of value, but there's a lot of them out there that they just get on your books and then they don't really add much value. So we're very, very conservative about the VCs that we would have, and frankly, we don't really want to have VCs on the books at this point anyway. So that's why we did propose the token swap option. Doing an equity it would further complicate things a lot. We definitely prefer not to do that option at this point.
Okay. Dr. Wegme has another interesting question. How much runway does 1.75 million give PC?
Right. So at our current burn rate, which is, so we have a couple major, we're mainly focused on the infra stuff here because we're moving to more of our team is going to be taking ghosts, which is great. So really this is mainly focused on infra. Last month we paid Redis fairly big amount. We're talking like double digits. We paid AWS double digits, and so I would say 1.75 mil at the current burn rate would be about, I would say, if we just stayed at this rate, we didn't have any new players coming in, and we didn't do any optimizations, it would probably be about 18 months because we're spending, I would say, probably more like 22, 23 months, maybe 24. Because the Redis was upfront it was kind of a flat fee that we pay them until we use it, and whereas AWS is a monthly fee. So we're looking, I would say 18 to 24 months is what we would be getting out of this 1.75 mil, as long as costs don't go up a lot, which I don't see them going up like doubling or tripling in the next 6 months because we are going to be able to do a lot of optimizations, but it is possible. And so that could get lowered down to 12 months.
That's good to know. Very helpful information. I'm gonna take a deeper read into the token swap, but it makes sense to me.
And yeah, we don't want to have any I was just gonna say we don't really want to have debt on our books, like taking loans out, because eventually you need to pay that kind of stuff back, even if it maybe not for like there's like negative interest loans. I'd have to look more into it. Oh, some DeFi fancy stuff. With that kind of stuff, I mean, it's cool, but there's always smart contract risk, and we're really just trying to have some safe funds that we know we can rely on, and to make sure that the Gotchiverse is going to stay on for a long time. That's why we're not really that interested in like doing loans on stuff, because you never know. Smart contracts, the devs might introduce a change, and smart contract might get hacked. Then we'd be in a bad situation.
Yeah, don't want to compromise there. Yeah, so just continuous discussion there in the chat about this 1.75 million DAI. I wanted to just touch on quickly a point that Hardcore had brought up about possibly doing a tournament / like leaderboards for channeling and collecting Alchemica as a way of increasing engagement, but also maybe increasing some friendly competition between the guilds, channeling and collecting Alchemica. And maybe that could be a segue into the glitter leaderboards. What are your thoughts on that, about creating a more of a competition, around collecting Alchemica, and more specifically between the guilds in the game?
Is there a post on that? I haven't read this specific post yet. Like, so you're basically saying a leaderboard for collecting Alchemica, and which would allow you to have better guild channeling.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't give me specifics on it, but just the idea of creating this competition around Alchemica collecting, and maybe it is tied to some sort of a reward, whether it's on a weekly basis or a monthly basis, as a way of creating more engagement between the guilds. I don't think there's an official post been made on it yet, but there should be. And when there is, I'll definitely bring it up. But just wanted to get your initial thoughts on it.
I mean, I think there's benefits we could give away. We have about how much ghost? There's like 7 million ghosts, I think, sitting and waiting for to be used in the game. So we don't necessarily need to give away more Alchemica for people who are earning a lot of Alchemica already. There could be some sort of leaderboard for how much Alchemica have you collected, and there could be some ghost rewards or something like that. That would be an interesting cool one use case for the ghost that's there.
Yeah, that's a good point. Hardcore says he's going to make a proper pitch for a leaderboard system, and then we can kind of dig deeper into that moving forward. Moving forward the conversation. 7 million ghosts. Yeah, that's a lot. That's going to be committed to our ecosystem. It's going to be interesting to see how that gets utilized. So we got couple more talking points. We already talked about spill rates, glitter. Maybe we can talk about the glitter token and the utility you guys are seeing for it initially on launch. Like, now that everybody's stacking their glitter, what are some of the primary use cases you see for it, aside from speeding up? I guess speeding up the build times would be the primary initially. But what are some of the other ones you guys are thinking about?
That's the main one. That's
okay.
We really haven't advertised much other utility for glitter rather than that. That's the main utility for it. And then future utility, there will be other ways to spend it within the game, but we're not quite there yet. That's going to take a little bit more development to get to that point. Eventually, we want it to be in game you can where you can deposit your glitter in game and use it kind of like as an in-game currency in addition to the Alchemica. Because one issue with Alchemica is that each gotchi has like a carrying capacity, and you can't really go over that amount. So there's an inherent limit to how much Alchemica a gotchi can be holding in its pocket at any moment, which could kind of limits what options it can be, what kind of actions it can take with that Alchemica. And also, if eventually you'll be able to die in the game, and if you die, then your Alchemica would get dropped. So that's another thing. But so for glitter, the idea with glitter is that we want to actually have it as a currency that can be deposited into the game, that can be used within the game, that's tied to your player's wallet address rather than the gotchi. So even if the gotchi dies, your glitter would still be available in the game for you to use. So that's definitely some upcoming utility that glitter will eventually have. And as far as glitter for replacing friends, for potentially buying raffle tickets, I think it's a very interesting idea. We just need to think about the volatility of glitter and how we want one glitter, how we want to value that as far as a raffle ticket, because it's always fluctuating. If we say, okay, one raffle ticket is 10 glitter, you're kind of tying the value of glitter to a raffle ticket, which is a bet on the future. And so it might actually end up like hurting the value of glitter because it's being tethered to that specific thing. So I think we should be careful with that as well, even though we definitely want to have a token that can be used for staking, and we're doing that with glitter. But for thinking about the speculative aspect of like the future, we would need to think a little bit deeply as a community about the implications of using glitter for that purpose.
Yeah, that's a good point. Do you foresee friends and glitter coexisting going into the future? In terms of, friends being used for raffle tickets exclusively, and then glitter being used for everything else, like in terms of utility in the game, and then speeding up the structures. Like, do you see them
Well, yeah, we
coexisting?
would love to just have one. We would love to have like
Yeah.
one glitter versus having friends and glitter. But we just need to make sure that I wouldn't want glitter's value to be brought down as far as basically becoming the value of a speculation on a raffle ticket, and the market kind of determining that, versus saying what it's actually supposed to be more is the value of the upgrading, which is how fast, how much glitter you need to upgrade something. But I think it's still way too early to make that call yet, because we haven't even started using glitter for its first purpose. So I think we should wait and see a little bit longer. And once glitter is live for spending, which it should be very soon, we'll start to see more of the value that that players are going to place on it.
Yeah, and it seems like the value of glitter will become more apparent over time as, you actually need it more and more to actually shorten. Like, it doesn't really matter if you're going to shorten your build time by a couple days for like a level 1, 2, or 3, but it might actually make sense to shorten it significantly and spend most of your glitter on the
Mhm.
higher levels to bring those build times down because they're so large.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, that's a good point. So yeah, we'll keep an eye out for that. And so there was some speculation that friends would be going away after these last two raffles. That's not a thing, right? That's not going to be happening. Is that something you
Well,
guys are considering?
that's something that we all need to make a call as a community. And right now, there's no movement to do that because we haven't even seen what's going to happen with glitter. But I would say there could be a possibility for sure that glitter could just be good enough that it can kind of take the place of friends. And really what we're trying to do with friends is incentivize the liquidity provision, and Glitter is doing a good job of that already, I think. I haven't checked the recent TVL of the pools, but I think, does anyone have some numbers? It'd be good to see that. Last time I checked, we were at like, let's see, Ghost, if you go to quick swap here, I think we were at like 200K in some of the pools. Ghost FUD. Quick swap has a terrible UI for looking up the TVL.
Yeah, I know you guys were saying you might make some upgrades to that later, to display the TVL.
Yeah, so yeah, we are definitely planning to do that. I have to look into how QuickSwap is calculating their TVL, but you can definitely see there when Glitter launched, the TVL in Ghost FUD, it went up from 40,000, 42,000 up to 215,000. So very, very nice increase in TVL there.
Wow, that's incredible. And I anticipate that number will keep going up, as more people realize the need for the Glitter token. To, those degens out there, they're not going to be okay with waiting a couple days, so they'll be spending.
Yeah.
Oh man, there was something a point I was gonna make, but it's gotten away from me now. But that's okay. So that kind of gives us a good idea on where we're heading with Glitter, where we're heading with Friends. That's something for the community to think about. Do we want future utility of Friends to exist, or should we start thinking about some other way to represent the raffles and minting tickets and whatnot? I personally, my opinion, just right now, it could change, but I think they could both coexist. Like, I was worried about Friends inflation over time before the Glitter announcement, that we're getting more people in the game, more staking happening, more Friends being minted, or more tickets being minted from Friends. And so the chances of winning an item, I figured, would be going down over time. But if there is a certain allocation going into Glitter staking, and not into staking for Friends, then maybe that could work out, and still provide an opportunity for just anybody to enter some raffle tickets and have a decent chance at winning, rather than it becoming a whales game of who has the most tickets. Yeah, so that was just my 2 cents on that. And then lastly, when GAX? When are we thinking? I mean, is this months out, or is this something that we'll see when we have like a launch with harvesters? Where what's the timeline in general for that?
So currently our main dev muscle as on the front end side, contract side, like a GAX is pretty easy to implement because it's really just forking a DEX. We've pretty much already done it. The main work is on the front end side. We are working on a full reimagination of the Aavegotchi front end UI called V2. And that is something we're aiming to launch in June. That's taking up that's going to be consuming a lot of dev time next month. So probably after that is done, I would expect the GAX to be launching. That would be the next big product that we'd be putting out. So that'll probably be, I would expect the GAX would be a July-August thing. Because I mean we have a decent, the QuickSwap is decent. It works. Not really, I'm not happy with it in many ways, but at least it's working for now. We really want to get this V2 done because it's quite a big upgrade to the usability of the site. It's going to help a lot of people with navigation and like learning and onboarding. So once that V2 is done, we will then, I mean, we'll be working on the GAX in tandem as well as far as the design of it, but it's still a couple months out, I think.
Yeah, good to know. It's still well, not early development, but you guys have many irons in the fire here, so I guess you can only
Yeah.
ship so many things at once, right? I wish we had 4 coder Dans sometimes. um, AJ has a question for you. Are you guys looking to add the installations on the Land Bazaar?
Oh, you mean like showing which installations are equipped?
Yeah, I think
I
that's
think
what
I
he's
think
getting
that's what
at
he
there.
means.
Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely are. It's a subgraph issue right now. We are going to be working a lot on the subgraph next week to show like which installations are equipped on a certain parcel, and we'll be able to show that information a lot easier. Because right now
Yeah, that'll be
we
really
can't
cool.
really show that information that easily.
Yeah, it'll be good. I mean, once that's available, you can differentiate, the price differences too, because you'll see that it has a certain. Will you be able to see certain level structures as well on the UI, or will it just say like this parcel has an altar and 2 harvesters?
Well, I think it should be able to say this one has like level 9 altar or level 2 golden altar. Should be pretty easy to do that.
Very cool. One more question from Dortz. Any ETA on when we can move around installations or burn them?
Yeah, that's again, the contract functionality is done. It's just a matter of adding that on the front end. We originally planned to have that by the 18th, but unfortunately it got cut because we had to prioritize something else. I forget what it was, but we had to cut that feature. So it should be a pretty easy thing to add in. Just we have it takes a little bit of dev time on the front end to add that in. So I would expect by next week. My plans for next week, we are hoping to have glitter upgrades live, and also at a very minimum removing removing altars from the parcel. Maybe not moving them around, but because actually that functionality, we don't have that on the contract yet. We need to add that. That is currently not on the contract side, so that will need to be added. That will take a little bit longer. But removing altars from the parcel should be easily done by next week.
Perfect. Yeah, I know Golden Cross had said we can expect like multiple quality of life improvements over the next couple weeks. So I guess that's one of the things there.
Mm-hmm.
One question from backside.bz. Will the level 2 altars forever function as the level 1? Because from what I understand, there's some sort of a bug that doesn't really differentiate between level 1 and 2, so you have to upgrade to level 3 to actually get the upgrade per se.
Yeah. Again, the subgraph, we are going to be, once we have the subgraph live, we'll be able to see exactly which parcels were affected by the bug, and we can make a list of all of them and then basically do a batch upgrade that will fix all of them. But currently, we don't really have a full list, and so we can't really push an update yet until we know that full list. So I would expect by next week. I believe the issue is fixed on chain for new altars, but the old ones we'll need to go back and fix those.
Great. Yeah. Awesome. I think that takes care of takes care of most of the questions we have in the chat here. Yeah. Harambe, does the cooldown reset after the level up?
I don't think so.
Yeah. Not reset.
It would be if it's been 18 hours since you channeled, and then suddenly you have, what is it, 12? Is it 12 hours or 16 hours? However many hours it is for level 3, you would be able to immediately channel after that one. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, I'm gonna get off here and
Yeah.
get some rest, and I'll see you guys have a great Sunday. And yeah, have a. I think it's gonna be a good week of optimizing and bug fixing, patching, making sure that next week is super smooth in the Gotchiverse. We're gonna get all the little small issues fixed.
Yeah, and thank you for shipping so hard.
Yeah.
Always appreciate the work that you guys do, and even you coming here, spending time with us on a Sunday morning, I guess Sunday night for you, is
Yep.
very much appreciated. And yeah, get some rest, and we'll link up again next week, next Saturday. And yeah, as far as I go, I do not. There will be no Gotchi space hosted by me tonight, but I think No Future may be hosting a Gotchi space. So keep
there.
an eye out for that. Okay, perfect. Hey, No Future, yeah, you're on stage here.
Yeah, I just wanted to say,
yeah.
I'll host it tonight.
All right, guys.
Okay.
Later.
Excellent. Yeah. All right. Take care, friends. Good night or good morning.